I'm Michael Morrissey, the Norfolk District Attorney, and welcome to another edition of the Norfolk Prevention Coalition Cable Show. As many of you are aware, we try to do a monthly program talking about what we believe to be the largest single threat to public safety and public health in Norfolk County, the state, and the United States, and that's the opioid epidemic. The challenges that we face often require us to devote a great deal of resources, both to the prosecution and education of people to stay away from these dangerous drugs. But we all know that we kind of wrest our way out of this problem, and we have to put a lot of effort into prevention and intervention. We're still losing. Last year, 173 people died in Norfolk County of an opioid overdose. A lot of it pills, but many of it heroin. We saved over 1,000 people with Narcan in all the communities in Norfolk County. So this year I believe that we won't hit the 173, but we'll probably hit upwards of 140, 150. There's a short time left in this year, in 2017, but I believe we're going to find we're saving more people as Narcan or naloxone. As I tell people, it's the same drug, and if you hear the word Narcan, it's the DuPont name for the generic drug naloxone. But one of the things that, and one of my favorite community partners who I do a ton of work with, and I like to tell him if it wasn't for me that he wouldn't have a job, and that's my friend the Sheriff of Norfolk County, because we do send him a lot of people who are often in crisis, who have a lot of issues that do end up getting locked up for a variety of reasons, and I refer to the sheriff as he's the largest detox in Norfolk County, and thankfully he is, because he plays an important role in trying to help people get back into society. But joining me is Sheriff Michael Bellotti, and also Tara Flynn. Tara is an Assistant Deputy Superintendent of Health Services. Tara is a nurse, and we're going to find out, I think many of you will be surprised about the type and kind of programs that the Sheriff offers to people who are incarcerated in Norfolk County. So welcome, both of you.
Mr. DA, thanks for having us on your show. We really appreciate it. Tara?
Thank you.
So now, Michael, I tell people, that you're the sheriff of Norfolk County, and you're the sheriff, so you preside over a jail and a house of correction. Can you tell people, because a lot of people may not realize, what happens and what the distinction is? Can you tell people?
Yeah, definitely. There's 14 sheriffs in Massachusetts. We're all elected. And we all oversee the House of Corrections in our respective counties. So we each oversee counties. Essentially, we are care and custody of all the offenders or the criminals or the folks who are convicted of crime that come out of district courts in Norfolk County, as you know.
Yeah, so
Quincy,
the
Stoughton, Rentham,
serious
Brookline.
state offenses you won't see. You'll see the
Right.
lower level.
So the folks that you prosecute in Superior Court typically will go to the Walpoles or the state system, which are overseen by the governor and public safety.
So I tell people that's big boy and big girl court. In the Superior Court, much more serious sentences going to the state system.
Exactly.
And
longer sentences. In the district court, what we're getting, again, as you know, Mr. DA, is that nobody's serving typically more than 2.5 years. The average sentence is 6 to 9 months. We're getting them quick, and they're coming in because they've committed crimes like larceny, small drug distribution, OUIs, assault and batteries, B&Es, most of the times in pursuit of drugs or under the intoxicated at the time that they've committed the crime. And so that means about 70 to really 90%, depending on what stats you depend on nationally and locally, have some type of substance abuse issue, and about a third of them have a mental health issue. And that's why we asked Tara to be here today, because Tara
she has to deal with both sides of that aisle.
In the old days, and she'll tell you, the world has changed in corrections. We're not just a silo any longer. We're not that house of correction in the middle of the county that is disconnected from resources or even the courts to a certain degree. We are so integrated in the criminal justice system, but more importantly, social services.
Okay, now, when people who work for me, prosecutors, they go to jail, they prosecute someone, they get sentenced, they go to the House of Correction, but you're also holding people in the jail, is that correct?
Yes. Typically and historically, about 1/3 of the population was what you call pretrial. These are folks that could be convicted or sentenced and end up either back with us on the sentence or the House side of the House of Correction, or end up in the state system with a longer sentence.
But you're holding, I know, right now, just a mix of some of the cases that I know that we have in the office. You're holding people who, everything from domestic batterers and abusers to you're holding murderers for us.
Murderers, yep.
So-
Serious drug offenses.
You know, rapists, others that are
rapists,
people
gambling, people with some serious crimes that the courts and through you have deemed not to put any
there
bail
could be
or a high bail.
Right, or it could be a danger to society or a danger of not showing up. They could be held for a period of time, and you have custody of them in the jail.
Right, and we also have, for better or worse, a lot of low bail offenders who the judges or the courts would determine that they might be safer in my facility, detoxing off the streets where they're in danger of, overdosing.
Well, that's
so we have
a funny.
real mix.
That's
Quite a spectrum.
No, but it's also a funny argument to make because there are a lot of people who are starting to bring attention to people with low bail. You know that is not fair to people who don't have a lot of money to you can't have bail on them. Yet you and I both know that there are parents who are begging us to put their children to lock them up to save them, and so that brings us really to some of the services. Tara, I assume that as a deputy superintendent, your side of the house, you have to evaluate people both that are being held for trial and people who've been sentenced there, evaluate them for medical issues.
Correct. Everyone that comes in through intake is seen by a registered nurse and a mental health clinician. And then they work together to decide whether they need to be housed in the health service unit or they're able to go out to general population. And at that point, if they have any medical or mental health issues, we'll try to confirm those medications or get a hold of their family or primary care providers to confirm medication. And then if detox is needed, they'll stay in the health service unit.
So Michael touched upon it. We see in the court sometimes, obviously, mental health is an issue. In Norfolk County, we have a veterans court, we have a mental health court, and a drug court, and we try obviously to deal with those people with different problems. But when you go across the spectrum, those three courts, a lot of people have both mental health and substance abuse problems who may be seen in the veterans court or in the drug court. So I'm assuming the people I see that we're sending them to you and to try to deal with, because it's a challenge for us to deal with them in the courthouse. I can only imagine it causes some unique problems in the facility.
Yeah, Tara, you talk about the mental health piece a little bit, because that's the one that's probably developing as much as anything else right now for us.
We actually work very closely with the mental health court. Our clinicians at the facility reach out to the judges or the clinicians right at Quincy District Court and discuss cases as they're coming to us. We also work very closely with the Veterans Court and the Drug Court and communicate openly. Our mental health population, probably 25 to 30% of those coming in have an actual mental health diagnosis. They're seen, like I said, initially on intake and then followed up with clinicians and psychiatrists during their stay with us, and our hope is to stabilize them as best as possible.
So they're seen by a nurse at intake within hours.
Yes.
Right, that's the point. We're right on top of it.
Now, I'm told that you're pretty aggressive on some of and progressive on some of the things you do. Did you recently get a grant also to help you with the mental health side of the house as well?
Yes.
We have a grant with the Federal Bureau of Justice, Mental Health Collaborative Grant, for $250,000, and we're working with an outside provider, All at Home Healthcare, to have their services come into the facility, assess the patients, and then help them post-release with whether it be medication or rides or primary care, in-house nursing, whatever they need.
Well, that's we're going to go through before we get to the release part, because I know that Michael spends a lot of time and effort on integrating people back into society. But before we can even get to that part of the picture, you're still evaluating people. Someone comes in the door, they could have a drug or a mental health problem, so you have to detox them there at the facility.
Yes.
Not always easy.
No, especially with the polysubstance abuse that we're seeing, prescription and non-prescription.
Right.
So
We see a lot of
sometimes
people-
it's a guessing game as to what they're
What they're taking, right?
Yes.
And we see a lot of people. It's not just heroin that's killing people, but we see pills still are prevalent in Norfolk County. People who may be snorting Percocets, Oxys, other problems are still presenting a real danger. And then one of the other things that maybe later in the show we can talk about is that you do a pretty good job of detoxing people and hopefully get them out, but some people do fall off the wagon. And one of the high-risk groups that we worry about is that with all the work you guys do and trying to get them out back into society, some of those people that are in the state and the county correctional system become high risk to overdose because they may go back to the old ways and not used to taking the amount of drugs, and so we find those people to be a high-risk population for us for overdose.
Right. Every program or every medically assisted treatment program or every new approach does create some type of unintended consequences. For example, Vivitrol. We've been administering Vivitrol at the jail since 2014, I believe.
Okay, so let's stop right there because you and I know what Vivitrol is, and,
Right.
and so one of the things that I'm under the impression that you counsel people, when you get them ready to go out into the back into society, and I know that nationally there's an effort to try to treat people with drugs, the appropriate drugs,
Suboxone and methadone.
and Vivitrol.
And Vivitrol, which can't be lumped together, which we tend to.
No, but tell people what Vivitrol is, because you and I understand what it is, but
I'll let Tom explain it more technically.
So Vivitrol is an injection that you receive every 28 days. It's an opioid blocker, so they don't feel any of the effects of the opiates when they take them. So
drive
it
down
blocks.
their drive to want to take an opioid.
Correct.
But there are two things about it. You obviously have to start them. You can't just start them like on the first day they're released from. This is something you start them a little earlier.
Right. So we actually start talking about it on intake and at orientation. We have flyers that we pass out. One of my nurses goes out to the housing units and speaks to the patients individually to see if they're interested. We have them see mental health clinicians 2 or 3 times depending on their length of stay. We also have to ensure that their liver functions are
Able to handle the.
yes, and also insurance. We have to make sure that they have insurance. So,
You work on putting people on Mass Health then too. I mean,
we work
besides-
with reentry services to get those in place.
Yeah, Mass Health is a big one. And legislative, we changed a law not too long ago so that inmates or offenders could be put in Mass Health before they're released. In the
That's
old
important to
days,
get counseling. Yeah, and they're out there without any coverage and other problems.
there's probably 4 or 5 areas that you have to address because we have them so quickly. More than other areas because nationally it's been proven that if you don't, it increases recidivism. Healthcare is a big one, right? So we go right after Mass Health, sign them up, connect them to a local doctor or clinic while they're leaving, and actually bring in folks during their stay to assess them so that they have someone in the community that they know. Housing, we
Well, that's
have.
important. I assume if you're going to continue, if someone says they want to take Vivitrol, then you're going to have to hook them up with someone who will continue to follow
Manic,
them.
right? We're doing a lot with Manic.
At Manic, Gavin, really anywhere we try to
Gavin
work
House.
with the patient depending on where they're returning to in hopes that
But you
it'll
still
be
have to
local. for
sometimes
them.
keep your fingers crossed that these people are going to,
No,
take
a lot of them don't show up for the follow-up treatment because now they're on their own. We can administer the Vivitrol, the injection, in the jail and get them to really play by the rules, adhere to some structure. But once they get beyond us, it's important for us to give them as much of a chance by connecting them with the same people inside the jail that are outside. Manic Community Health is a big partner of ours.
Yes.
Right? They actually know the doctors and the nurses and the folks, and they help sign up with Mass
So is
Health
that
also.
the biggest challenge when someone's, you can have some good programs within the facility, but you need some continuity outside the facility. So you need, as you said, you're trying to bring some of the people into the program providers into the jail so that people hopefully will gravitate towards them when they're outside.
Exactly. And housing, another big one. We have partnerships with the Gavin House, North Cottage, the Brook House, and South Shore House in
So it's in
Quincy.
sober houses and
The sober houses are places where we actually pay for the beds, about $90 a day plus. And while they're still under our jurisdiction, care and custody, they might be on a bracelet, they may not be on a bracelet. Depends how we classify them. But they will be in the community, in a recovery home, which is another step of them really kind of earning their freedom. We can bring them back if they don't, if they test positive for drugs, they don't play by the rules, even a bad attitude. So we're different than probation. We don't have to have a surrender hearing.
Right.
We don't owe them due process.
Just
They've
go
been
get
given
'em,
due
'cause
process up front.
they're already under your custody and
Right.
care, so
Right.
you
So
got
it's a
'em.
little bit more of a stick.
So, but that means also that you're taking chances on people as the sheriff.
We do, and more, we equate taking those chances as to,
The right thing
in
to do,
essence, it's increasing public safety because it's better to release somebody next to you know,
Well,
your
you,
mother,
well, you don't
grandmother.
you and I don't want to see them back again, too. So
Unconnected to resources or
Yeah.
any type of monitoring.
Right.
I mean,
it's
post-mandatory supervision would be great if that was part of the law. It isn't, so we work within sentence. And
I think you may see some of that coming. I think that's
yeah, I know with
important.
this new legislation, but
The DAs, I think, would be, supportive of that as well. I mean, more supervision, more programming in the back ends. They always say, I listen to it, and it's I don't think it's a fair argument, but I look at the state prison population. Over the last 4 years, it's dropped from 11,000 to about 8,300 people. And I assume your population may be down a touch, but it's still upwards.
It is.
Still upwards of 500 on average, I
right,
assume.
definitely on average, yeah.
And, but it's down a little.
But nationally and statewide on the county level, it's coming down too because of the
Yeah, but-
Veterans Court, mental health court. Not maybe as dramatic as the
Well,
state.
you're also reducing it yourself by pushing people out of the facility.
You like to
into-
think
into
so.
Programs, but the problem is, people say, "Geez, all those bodies that we're reducing out of the state prison system, you think there'd be a ton of savings?" But the problem is, the real savings is when you start closing wings and facilities,
Right.
and we're not there yet.
We're not
And-
there yet.
And the problem is, your office is much like mine. The highest percentage of the expenditures, I assume, that you incur as sheriff, I suppose, besides feeding some of them,
Fixed
but
costs.
personnel has to be up there.
It is. It's almost 70%.
Right, in the DA's office, we're not feeding and maintaining people, but we're upwards of 85%. And,
Right.
And the rent is the other big.
And that would make sense with you folks because you're not feeding and you're
No.
not housing.
Right.
You're not paying as much for oil.
So
and
the
energy costs.
so the problem is you have the fixed overhead, and you're doing more with with people, especially just because they're not in the facility. I assume you're putting resources, your own resources, out in the community to follow these people as well.
Right. And we're doing more with local police, dedicating staff with different DEA and FBI folks. Task
So
force.
now, all right, so you're dealing with you have the prison population that's in the House of Correction. What about the people that you're holding that are waiting trial? And some of the people, I have to admit that, I know that I have a couple of cases that are, 3 years old. There's very serious murder cases that you're holding, people. And I would say through no fault of many cases, the district attorney's office have changed attorneys multiple times. That they're not ready. Sometimes additional evidence. It's just it can be.
It's how the system works.
The complicated cases can take a long time to put them together, so you actually could.
And it's beyond our powers to really overly concern ourselves with how the courts work and why they work.
No, you got to hold them because
Right.
that's your job, and we get frustrated at times that we're trying to move ahead on a case, and the defense attorney, the judges don't want to. When they're dealing with people's liberty rights, they.
Right.
I get
Video
so,
conferencing example of that. Not everybody embraces video conferencing.
No, but I get frustrated at times too when we're trying to move a case ahead. You're trying to be supportive of the victim and their families and trying to move a case ahead. And the judges obviously don't want to stomp on anybody's rights, so they sometimes, I think, bend a little bit more towards,
Defense.
listen to the defense. At the end of the day, they're going to go to trial, and we'll get a fair trial. But that gets frustrating at times. But
So
that
the
means.
challenge for us,
Well, you get them for a long time. So how do you handle the
So,
jail population?
constitutionally, we're not required to offer them any programming on the pretrial side.
Because they're not sentenced to you.
They're not sentenced. Nor do they get earned good time. So the House gets earned good time. If you participate in so many programs, you get up to 10 days off your sentence a month. So whether it's AA, educational programs, vocational, reentry programs, the Vivitar program, community service, you will get upwards to 10 days. So actually 1/3 of your sentence. Pretrial doesn't work that way. So there's less of an incentive for the offender to participate.
Well, they do in a way though. They'll
weigh it.
Well, they get credit for if let's say someone is waiting for a murder trial for 3 years, and they end up being convicted of a manslaughter. Let's say get 15 to 18, whatever.
Right.
They're going to get 3 years credit on the
Definitely, right.
on the sentence, but
Well,
they're not getting so-called
Or a good time. Although a judge may take that into account indirectly how
Well,
they've participated. So it may not be a murder trial, it may be something else that's a lesser.
Okay, so
Right.
that's my question.
So judges weigh all these. So we do shift resources, and we are shifting programs to the pretrial side. Not only that, Mike, as you said, there are more people in the pretrial side than there have been historically. And as I said earlier, 1/3 of our population was typically the number of inmates overall in
Yeah.
pretrial. Now it's over 50%. So more than 1 out of 2 inmates right now is on the pretrial side. That has never happened in all the years that I've been involved, almost 20 years. but for the past couple of years, and that just goes to,
think it's a
I
fun-
believe,
a
judges are
function
detoxing.
Function of the drug crisis we're facing.
Parents aren't putting up the $500 to get their
No,
kid out.
I see them begging us to
Right.
assign some bail.
And
so
their
that-
friends aren't doing it for them anymore. It's a different type of inmate who is just
That's
so.
what it's lost on some people, honestly. I know there are people who are generally frustrated with the system and think that low bail is improper and we shouldn't do it.
Right.
But they're missing the point of they're going to a place like the Norfolk House of Correction where someone can actually get some services, even in the jail. Never
On the
mind.
jail, we're doing servicing. We are.
So,
And
that-
even though they don't technically get a good time, I know that I am assuming the judges indirectly weigh their level of participation when they think of sentencing.
now, Tara, you also have to evaluate the people, whether they're sentenced to the House of Correction or you're being held in jail, you still got to go through an evaluation.
Yes, we don't treat them any differently.
Everybody
To us,
gets
everybody in the facility,
And walk that door, you get evaluated.
absolutely, and
And-
receive the same medical services.
Okay, so that reminds me now. One of the things that I often hear, and I saw an article in the news this week, is that there seems to be a resurgence of HIV coming back in, but you also face other complicated diseases as well. I mean, don't you see?
Hepatitis C is the
Yeah, can
most
you talk
common
about
for
the
us.
pill and what we're trying to do with that?
Well,
How expensive it is?
yeah, I mean, for a 12-week treatment, it could be $45,000 up.
You can cure Hep C now,
Yes.
but it's an expensive proposition.
Yes,
I
and
think
it's very
I think-
difficult if our patients aren't with us the whole time.
Right.
So they may not continue that treatment. So we try to
Make sure the person's
ensure
gonna
that
be-
they stay with us, they're clean and sober and able to follow
What's
through
the
with the
success rate
plan.
on that? Is it over 80%?
Oh, yeah, at least.
Imagine
You
that.
can-
They now have a pill, as we all know.
And there's
That's
different pills,
$1,000
but-
each. Right, different pills.
Now,
Yeah,
Insurance
depending.
between-
Hep C is something, again, as in HIV, sharing needles obviously would be one of the factors that would cause those numbers to go up.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think 1 out of 6 or thereabouts baby boomers have Hep C, or 1 out of 7 or 8. And so a lot of people have this. This is like a miracle drug. And so,
At $45,000 a treatment.
yeah, maybe up to $100,000.
It can be depending on the patient's genotype, so.
So that goes to the broader question, or the more fundamental question of what is our role in corrections when you have somebody on the outside who might make the argument they can't afford that type of treatment. But,
yeah.
again, this
Well,
goes to the Constitution.
I don't think we deny anybody medical treatment.
No,
and
but the question is, do you give somebody the highest and best level of medical treatment? And with this, we consider this a public safety or public health issue. So if they come across us, but it is a money issue, and it's not readily available. I mean, I think originally we did it with a grant.
It's a challenge. Through HIV, yes.
Right.
We just started working with Health Imperatives. They received grant funding for Hep C treatment. So they're also coming into our facility, working with our patients and helping them post-release to obtain those services.
So,
That's a big paradigm shift compared to 10 years ago, where we're proactively looking for a disease to cure. That tells you how, in corrections, we've all come to the
I know
conclusion.
that we've worked together. I know you've had a couple of, in the new legislation deals with the issue of some people in end of life or who are critically injured. And
That's in the
so,
legislation, too.
so if someone gets either sent to the jail or to the House of Correction and their medical condition is like catastrophic, who's responsible for that care?
Well, yeah, typically, unless we,
Right.
go in front of a judge and
And we work with you on some of those cases where we've got either
release
people
them because of.
into nursing homes or other facilities which would be more appropriate for the level of care.
But that is an expensive part of what
But you
we
have
do.
to, once they're sent to you, and I mean
We own
the
it.
Norfolk County House of Correction, jail or House of Correction, then, so that may mean sometimes you have to take them out of there and send them to the Shattuck, is that correct? But
Right.
you're still responsible.
Correct.
Totally.
And so that means sometimes, I know that you send guards
We do.
With
Correction
people-
officers, yep.
and correction officers that have to transport them, they have to stay with them, they have to
Yep, 2
look
at
over
times,
them.
depending on their classification. So you have 2 correction officers, which creates overtime, creates forces. So these are the issues that we should probably approach more regionally.
Well, then this is, I always say to people now, the people who generally pass through the doors of Norfolk County, how many of those people are getting released?
All of them, virtually all of them.
Right, either they're
Unless
getting,
they have a sentence in another system or and
yeah,
they're
but
going
they're
to
still,
the state,
but
they're
they're
waiting.
still,
Yeah.
they're gone. So
Yeah, no more than 2.5 years.
And you said
On
the
the
average,
average,
the average
3
stay
to
is
6.
only 6 to 9 months?
Well, yeah, right around there.
Except that's sentence. But
Sentence.
pre-trial is probably all
Pre-trial
over,
is different, yeah.
all
I
over
mean,
the
someone
place.
gets a low bail, they get out early. Other people stay, like you said, 3 to 4 years.
Now, people I know, a lot of people think that the jails and houses, they don't make a difference. They say send them to jail, but they don't realize that the jail is just a holding area
Right.
for child. But so send them to the house of correction. And we're into punishment. So, I mean, why? Simply speaking, why are you doing all this stuff?
Public safety. Think about if somebody who lived next to you, your mother, your daughter, your grandmother, went off to jail because they had a major addiction, but they were creating or committing all these crimes. B&E, they might have little violence or anger management issues. There might be some mental health issues. Wouldn't you rather they know that they were
Oh, no,
challenged?
I'm completely with you because
Right, no, I know, but I guess I'm talking to the public. Yeah.
No, you see, we see some of the same people that you're absolutely right. If they have a drug problem of some kind, a substance abuse issue, then they may rob their family, rob their neighbors, break into cars, break into businesses. That's a chain that we often see. And the question really is, shouldn't we try to get that person help? Because when he leaves your facility, if he goes back into that same old pattern, I'm going to see him again, and you're going to see him again. And
Yeah.
it's not.
And we're trying to do this in a way that's that we can back up empirically. Northeastern University has been in the jail for 6 years. I hope they never leave. We have them on an annual contract, measuring and studying and overseeing these
some of the
different
best
programs.
practices that.
Even in our own facility, instead of just depending on national studies, we're measuring how many of these offenders go through reentry, to what degree, and to what success is each program. And we're at least at this
Well,
point.
you have some national models too, as well as the local level. But I think that instructive as well. And you've always been one of the more progressive sheriffs because not every sheriff does what you do. I've seen that statewide.
Right. Well, you've seen it, but I mean, many more are doing it, and many have been doing it. It's just a matter of getting all the sheriffs up to a certain level of
Comfort and
with the reentry programs, and moving beyond the philosophy that the punishment is such a deterrent that it will reduce crime.
Yeah.
Not in this climate.
Well, I know that we start to run out of a little time, and I know that we dragged Tara out of the
Thank you,
jail.
Tara.
And
First time,
Have me, yes.
no, it's
Next time you come, I won't.
well, it's the most complicated part, dealing with medical problems, and I don't think people fully realize all the things that you have to do every day. And Michael actually has 2 domains, the jail and the house of correction. And I think it's important for people to understand that.
But you can see with the type of staff I have, the professionals,
You have awesome
hire
people.
good people.
Yeah, you have awesome people. We've worked together with you on a lot of good
From
investigations.
the correction officers to
You run some.
medical teachers, caseworkers.
You've helped us on all sorts of cases. We
The
work with
investigative
you.
unit is big.
Yeah. So I can't say you're a great community partner on the public safety, public health side, and getting people back into the community. I need more people like you, and I jokingly always say you're the largest detox in Norfolk County,
Yeah,
but absolutely positively, no doubt about it. And I think that's very important, especially these day and age when we're trying to get people sober. That you've been on the front end of it. So I just wanted people to hear some of the good things that are going on in the House of Correction and the jail and the staff that you have with you. And I thank you both for coming on the program.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
DA.
for having us.
Yeah.